Welcome, everybody. Dr. Espen here. Welcome to Dr. ETV. Today, I have the privilege of interviewing one of my clients, an incredible woman that has done some really major things in her life in terms of her own healing, in terms of her own development and the expansion of consciousness, and also who has done some awesome things in terms of being an entrepreneur, a soulpreneur, and making this world a better place on a profound level. So stay tuned today because we're going to go through principles of quantum healing. We're going to talk about happiness and health. We're going to talk about how to manage stress and turn stress into your friend when you're a soulpreneur. And of course, also what we can achieve when we use these quantum principles. I want to say a special welcome to Fiona Soutter. How are you this morning?
I am pumped and I'm so excited to be here, Espen. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a privilege and a pleasure. So I asked Fiona to come on because I've had the privilege of coaching her for quite a while now, and we've seen some amazing stuff. And I want to kind of reveal some of those principles to you and let Fiona share her story, because when we get the insights as to the tools that are available to us in personal life, in our health, with our stress and with our money and business, we can, as I say, stand on the shoulders of giants. So just tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? And what do you think we could discuss today that's going to give the viewers some awesome value?
Yeah, so I have an e-commerce brand, which I launched at the beginning of 2020. Prior to that, I had some other businesses in service-based businesses. And I had continuously hit a lot of glass ceilings, so to speak, and was looking for ways to change that. So launched this e-com brand thinking that this was going to be the answer. And funnily enough, the glass ceilings continued to happen. So that was the beginning of 2020. And Espen, you and I started working together in 2022. By that point, I'd already started my journey of personal growth and had worked a few things out on my own, but really was needing that assistance and support and guidance to make some massive change in my life, because there were some patterns and programs that I just couldn't shake.
I remember that. And we met at the retreat. You came to the Conscious Enterprise retreat. What was it that called you to come to that retreat?
Look, I'd already been doing some work within the quantum physics world and done a lot of stuff online, and it was during lockdowns, and so there was very little opportunity to do face-to-face learning. And then, of course, you came across my feed and I went and looked you up, and without having ever met you, without ever having spoken to you, I looked at your website and saw that you had the Conscious Enterprise retreat, and it just spoke to me. It was just, I knew in my heart that that was where I wanted to go. I had my business, it was doing well. I already had philanthropy built into things, and I just thought this is like the next stage for me to really lean into what I'm doing as a conscious entrepreneur, and just to have so much clarity around it. So I booked this retreat and went up there, not really having ever really met you. So it was a leap of faith.
I remember that.
As I say,
I remember that.
was called to do it. Yeah.
That was so cool. Okay, so tell us about some of the things that you've achieved. I know in a moment we're going to talk about some of the standard blockages, like what is it that creates these glass ceilings that you talked about, these stagnations, because we all have it, right? We go through life, we go through business, we grow, we learn, we evolve, and then we hit these glass ceilings and it just feels like we just keep stagnating. We can't get through that. So in a moment, we'll talk about what we did, what those were for you and what we did to get you through that to the next level. But just tell us a little bit about what was your, you said you're in e-commerce, you already run a multi-million-dollar business, you were pretty successful, but then there was that glass ceiling. And then how would you describe that for the viewers and listeners when perhaps they're also or have also been at a point where they're working really hard, but they feel like they're at that glass ceiling level? How does that work?
Well, look, one of the things that was really surprised me coming away from the Conscious Enterprise retreat, and I didn't quite know at the time as I left that it was going to be such a huge impact. I arrived at that retreat with chronic health problems. I had been suffering from migraines since I was a teen. And when I mentioned the word migraine, we're not talking about the odd one here and there. We're talking about more than 50% of my days throughout my life have had some level of pain. And I would say about 20 to 25% of those days were severe pain. And having spent many thousands, probably tens of thousands of dollars with specialists, having taken codeine-based prescription drugs for most of my life, I just could not find any resolutions or answers or relief to this issue, and had just assigned myself to the idea that this was just who I was. I am a migraine sufferer, and that's just how life was for me. So you can imagine the glass ceiling that placed on me in terms of productivity and focus, just being able to work normally the way most people do on a day-to-day basis. So aside from self-limiting beliefs such as maybe money stories that I had, or confidence in being able to express myself, the biggest one was the migraines. And so arriving at this conscious enterprise retreat, which was all about connecting to soul purpose, the last thing I had in my mind that I was going to find answers to was those health issues. But I'm here to say that since that retreat, I've not had a migraine, not one. I've had the odd headache from maybe a little bit too much to drink, but no migraines whatsoever. And after the first month or two from the retreat, I was just going, oh my God, this is really bizarre. Like, I have not suffered any pain. And I started to wonder why. And then I recalled when we were doing one of the classes at the Conscious Enterprise Retreat, you mentioned to our group, what stories are you telling yourself that you're attached to that are not serving you? And you were speaking about business at the time and self-limiting beliefs that might be affecting people. And I remember sitting there thinking, I knew that there was money and I knew there was a few other things. And then all of a sudden this download came, and I just had that huge aha moment where I thought, I've been telling myself my whole life, I am a migraine sufferer. I've just been telling myself that. That was part of my identity. I'd meet people and somewhere in the conversation, oh yeah, I suffer migraines. I have this chronic pain. And I remember sitting in that classroom just going, I'm going to stop that. I'm going to no longer tell myself that story, and I'm going to start loving my brain, feeling gratitude for clarity and vision and clear mind and clear thinking. So that was one thing that I knew that I had changed on that very day. And months went by and I went traveling and did QA, which is where we work through each of the chakras and, working through different blockages. A lot of the things I knew were there. And then we got to the pineal gland. And as you're explaining, some of the, what the pineal gland relates to in life, you said it relates to purpose. Mm-hmm. And then you went on to say that one of the symptoms of the pineal gland being blocked is headache. And I went, oh my God. Isn't that interesting that from that retreat, I became so clear on what my soul purpose was. I already had some ideas around it, but I didn't have the identity with it. So when I left that retreat, I had written down and I had said to myself, I am a philanthropist and an inspirational leader. And it was clear as day to me. And I knew that that's the part of life that I really, really wanted to lean into. So to me, I think the combination of changing a story about chronic health problems and really unblocking the pineal gland and becoming laser focused as to what my soul purpose was, I believe that they're the two major reasons why these migraines have disappeared.
Disappeared,
gone.
So how long were they there beforehand? And you mentioned this was very debilitating, or they happened regularly throughout the whole week, eh?
Yeah. Well, I'm 50, so, I was probably 13, 14 when they started and had been dependent on pain relief as the only way to escape them.
Wow. Yeah. That's incredible. And this is interesting because, some people will look at this and go, absolutely, totally get it. I understand how the nervous system works. When you have clarity of mind, there's less interference, call it pain, right? And then you have obviously other people perhaps watching this going, that doesn't work. And they might be not believers. And so what I have to say to that for me is really simple. For me, it doesn't matter what created the miracle.
Yeah.
For me, it doesn't matter. I mean, all of those things. And we've worked with, how to apply quantum technology, quantum principles in life. But I get it, and when you have such a healing, and it's been how many months since the retreat now? I mean, it's coming up on
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
May last year. It's now April. So that's a year. I feel like my life's been given back to me. And look, it makes, like, I'm the kind of person, I want to understand these things. And that's one of the things I love about quantum, is there's so much solid science behind it that it makes sense. So when I started looking into epigenetics, which you also teach about, and understanding how thought, which is energy, affects the expression of DNA, by changing my thought, by changing the messages I was sending to my cells, my DNA, I've been able to switch off that expression in my body. And that's the science behind it. So it makes complete sense.
Mm-hmm. Now, for those listening, for those watching, when you absorb this content, when you look at what's happening here right now, just imagine now how powerful it could be for you to change your story, just like Fiona is experiencing and expressing here. What story are you telling yourself right now in your personal, private life, in your professional life, in your relationships, with your money, whatever? And that's the whole point of rewiring these blueprints, these stories, because they're templates that are outdated and they don't serve us anymore. Every single day when we say, share, think, or feel the same story, we're creating that outcome. I just wanted to really make a point as to how powerful of a creator we all are, and the powerful transformation that you've done as a part of this. I mean, since you were in your early teens to now, I mean, I'm just mind boggled. So yeah, it's been so cool. Tell us, just let's drop some golden nuggets here. You and I have done, so you came to the retreat, we've done some one-on-one coaching. Soon we're going to talk about, the multi-million-dollar business, what we were able to achieve working together with it, and where you are now. So stay tuned, because there's some really cool business coaching principles coming up soon. But before we do that, I just want to jump into, you mentioned there was principles that we coached on, and you also mentioned stress. What are some of the tools that we've worked on that you've used in your life that you feel has had the greatest effect in your personal life and in your professional life?
Yeah. So it's the stress. I mean, that's just part of Western living. It's just crazy how much stress it's presented to us. And so once again, there was so many elements to how I changed how stress presents in my life and how it affects my body. So coming back to what stories are you telling yourself? There's a big story that we can learn from that around, what are you telling yourself about stress? So, I'm so stressed out today, I'm feeling overwhelmed. So firstly, becoming consciously aware of the language that I use when these things occur. So for example, I've stopped using the word stressed, overwhelmed, and started thinking about those things in terms of challenges. Because to be honest, I love the analogy called, which is the bear at the mouth of the cave. So stress releases cortisol in your body, which is designed for fight and flight. And most of the time in Western living, we're in this constant cortisol response where we're in the fight and flight mode. But we don't need to be. There's no bear at the mouth of the cave about to eat us. We don't need to fight that bear off, and we don't need to run from it. And so when things are occurring in life, when something's happening with business, or perhaps something doesn't go so well in a personal relationship, I'm changing the language around it. I'm asking myself, is the bear at the mouth of the cave? No, I'm actually okay. I'm safe. I don't need to run. I don't need to fight. Is this uncomfortable? Yeah, it's uncomfortable, but that's okay. I know that 99.9% of the time when something is feeling uncomfortable, it turn out to be okay. So it's about having that conscious awareness around that, and knowing that everything's actually going to be okay. You don't need to go into fight and flight mode. The bear might be in the woods, and so maybe sometimes you have to be proactive. You have to get some things done to resolve the issue. But I just think by changing the way I perceive it has made a huge impact. I've also noticed that when I do start to feel anxiety or I'm stressed, working with you has helped me to have a toolkit, so to speak, of what to do with that. Because sometimes, you might have this conscious awareness, you're trying to not allow it to become stress within your body, but sometimes it does. So meditation has taught me to allow things to come up, but then flow out. So that has been an amazing toolkit for me in my toolkit.
You guys hear that? Allow things to come up and then to
flow out.
flow out.
Yeah.
So to arise and to let go, not to hold on to that. I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I used to get stuck in stress loops where something would happen and I'd go over it and think about it, mull on it, dwell on it, think about all the what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? And to give an example, I had an issue with my importing into the US with my top selling product in January of this year. Customs detained it. There was an issue with compliance, and Old Fee would have fight and flight, stress response, stress looping. What if there's something wrong? Does that mean they're recalled, and then the business might go bankrupt? And all the what ifs. But instead, I was able to allow the stress to come up, acknowledge it. Okay, so now I've acknowledged that this feeling is in me, that anxiety or the pressure and the challenge that's ahead of me. But then being able to recognize that this is not a bear at the mouth of the cave. I can take some steps to deal with this, and I'm not going to project into the what ifs, because those what ifs aren't going to serve me. They're going to make me sick. They're going to make me not be able to sleep. And so that went on for about 3.5 weeks. And throughout that time, there were no tears. I did not lose any sleep. There was no headaches from stress. I didn't have any anxiety attacks. And it was a fairly serious issue, but I just dealt with it in a completely different way.
I remember the conversation, and when we came up in our coaching session, we were talking about, okay, well, how's this happening for you? What are you supposed to learn? Since everything around us, and this is important to take a note on for those watching, since everything around us is a direct reflection, a mirror, a projection of our own consciousness, what's happening inside of us, we project and it comes back. And so if that's the case, and we know this through quantum science, if I'm projecting something and something's happening in my reality and coming back to me, well, then it's not happening to me, it's happening for me. It's happening for me to learn, to heal, to grow, to evolve, whatever. And remember, we had that conversation and you looked at the situation very differently. And so much of the work that we've done, which I've really appreciated working with you, is that when you learn these tools, quantum techniques, you actually apply them regularly, and you've been able to see a lot of breakthroughs in life because you have applied the tools and then you see the manifestation of it. So can you just tell everybody, when this whole thing happened, for most people would have freaked out. We're talking a multi-million-dollar business on the verge of bankruptcy if this thing doesn't work out, and you went through the process beautifully with basically no fear. How were you able to do that and get to where you are today?
So aside from meditation, some of the other things that I have learned to really help me to process, stay grounded, is to be out in nature, to practice my daily gratitude, journal. There's so many different things to move my body, breath work. I've just got this huge toolkit. So as soon as I'm starting to feel those feelings that used to feel alien in me now, I know what to do. Get up, move my body, do breath work, go outside, be in nature, speak out loud some beautiful gratitude. And it just brings you right back into your heart, out of your head. I think that's the big thing, actually, Espen, is this process of, when you're stressed, a lot of it's just, you're stuck in your head. To come back into heart space is really important, and that grounds me, and it really works.
This is a very good point here, because we can talk about this in theory. For example, I'm drinking tea, but let's water, right? I can talk about this all day. Drinking water is good for you and hydrates the body, but it doesn't do anything unless I actually drink the water. So I know many people are watching thinking, okay, yeah, I've heard about meditation, of course, and I've heard about this breath work, and I've heard about this quantum thing, but this is really the key to it. When we do this kind of work, we are able to unlock how that works within us, to find a way that matches our value system. So it's not an effort anymore to meditate. It's not difficult anymore to do breath work or to take care of ourselves or go for a walk or, jump in the surf or go for a swim, whatever, because it comes natural to us. And I remember that was one of the main principles that we discussed in the beginning of your coaching, because you okay, wow, I'm starting, this headache is going away. I'm so grateful. What else could I achieve? And then we started talking about, well, how do we manage stress levels that we're talking about? How do we, double the business or scale the business? How do we buy back your time? Because I remember that was one of the things for you as a business owner doing, it's a 7-figure business. It's a big business. It's not a small feat. and you had such drive to help young ladies as a philanthropist, which I'd love to get into now. So when you transitioned from healing your body and healing your nervous system and having these tools, how did you see that had an effect on the business? Because I think many people, and speaking from experience, when I was younger, we look at it and we go, oh, I'm going to be a successful entrepreneur. We call it soulpreneurs, right? And so then we go and do all the business stuff. And then I think sometimes we kind of drag the old habits with us. The stress and the rut and the, I've got to hustle, got to push, grind to get it done. But how have you been able to, and what was it that you did that took those quantum principles that healed you in your life and applied those to your professional life as well? Tell us a little bit about that.
So as I started learning about energy and about emotions and the organ scale of consciousness, it was really interesting as I started raising my vibration and living more in peace, love, gratitude, and less in the lower vibrational state. I found that aside from the physical healing, and as you know, like the more joy, the more gratitude, the more peace that I had in my life, I also had a healing of this shoulder that had been chronically injured for 18 months. So that's the other healing that's happened. But I became so much more productive, more focused, more creative, and was able to achieve in 3 to 4 hours a day what I normally would have done in maybe 8-10 hour days previously.
Wow. So that's twice the level of productivity.
Yeah. And at the time, I do remember I was traveling, and it's really interesting. I'm noticing this, and this is occurring. And then you ask, so what's changed? Can you pinpoint what's changed in your life? Because I was traveling at the time, and our focus in our coaching session was, well, how are we going to maintain that when you go back to Australia and you're back in the day-to-day life? So I thought about it, and the biggest one was joy. There was so much joy in my life, so much gratitude. Every day I was doing these amazing things with beautiful people and just happy. And then the gratitude that came from that was so intense, so deep, so beautiful. And so there was at high levels of joy and gratitude, and vibrationally, that's where I was pretty much living in joy and gratitude. The other thing that really changed for me during that period of travel was I was moving my body. I was out in nature. So when you put those 4 things together, joy, gratitude, being in nature, move your body, and then come back to Australia, and previously I'd been sitting inside, disconnected to nature, under artificial light, working 8-10 hours a day. And then, isn't it interesting that when I went traveling, had those 4 elements in my life, and when I sat down to work, I was doing an hour and then maybe an hour and a half and maybe half an hour before I went to bed because I was out and about during the day. And yet I was getting the same done.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Take that in.
It just goes to show we tell ourselves this story. I've got to work hard, work hard, work hard, hard. Like work shouldn't be hard. Like work became easy. I was in flow state. I was just intuitively able to be creative and have ideas and inspiration because my energy was in the right space. I was connected to nature. I was grounded. So I think there's so much to learn from that. And now, when I come back to Australia now, it's so important to me. And every now and then I'll start to slip into this whole, got to work hard, I've got all these things to do. But then I become consciously aware of it, step out, make sure I keep those practices going. So that's a big part of the toolkit for me too.
Oh, beautiful. And I love this, how we can actually, and you can see, for me observing Fia, she's talking about this, you can see the joy, the gratitude, the enthusiasm, the energy that she has in her body when she speaks of it. And I could just imagine what it would feel like to go from being a teenager in chronic pain for decades and decades to be able to let that go. And many people say this at the Conscious Enterprise Retreat. It's a 6-day rediscovering your purpose, build a business based on your purpose retreat. And so many people have said it. I came for business purposes, but I got healing at it. And they're so perplexed. And I'm like, well, there is no separation between the two. Your business is an expression of your value system, of your purpose, of your mission, of what you want to give back to the world and what you're passionate about and so on and so forth. which is identical to what you love. I mean, it should not be a separation. That's what often blocks the pineal gland, when we have a set of values over here where we love, like you mentioned, going for walks in nature and meditation and family time and all these things. And so we have a set of values over here, and then we have a business over here. And if there's a conflict of values between, what we love and what we do for a living, that creates disease and distortion in the energy system. And this is really important to understand. That's why at the 3-day Quantum Advance, we actually unpack a lot of these questions, as in, what is my perfect career? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What's the story behind it? What could I achieve when I use these tools? So I thought that was really interesting how you actually noticed a major connection, I should say, between your personal self and your professional life. Can you tell us what has happened since you've applied these quantum tools in your life to your business specifically? And tell us a little bit more about the business that you do.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, it's an e-commerce brand. And I think that was another big shift. Well, I know the big shift. I had seen myself as an e-commerce entrepreneur, and by the time I left the retreat, I realized that I actually am a philanthropist. And so the business is used as a vehicle for me to support charities of disadvantaged for disadvantaged girls throughout the world. And these are not the big charities, these are the on-the-ground that are supporting girls and helping to improve gender equality. Now, when you talk about values, that's something that's super important to me. And I already had that built into the business, but I still saw myself as an e-commerce entrepreneur that did philanthropy. And what changed for me at the retreat is I thought, I am a philanthropist that uses e-commerce to live in my values and to contribute to the world in the way that is important to me.
Yeah,
so
let that sink in.
That shift is subtle, but massive.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. So the story changed again. There was an identity change here. And for those watching, listening, take note on this. What story are you telling yourself? As in, are you a business owner? Is that the story that you're telling yourself? Well, is that really the grandness of your opportunity and gift? Or are you actually a philanthropist that uses the business as a vehicle? For example, that's completely different, because how you identify and what you believe about yourself is obviously what you create. So are you saying that you went from being, thinking that you're a business owner doing some sort of philanthropy, that you actually changed it to I am a philanthropist, and the business is a vehicle to make that difference? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've even clarified, for me, I now speak about I will impact the lives of 1 million little girls. That is my goal. That's where I want to go. And that is the driving force behind everything I do in my business. It's what the driving force behind the team that I've now built. I didn't have a team when I first met you.
I remember.
It was just me. I had this massively huge business and, team. I now have full-time staff working for me. So, in the interview process and then on all of our meetings, one of the biggest focuses we have is these little girls that we are supporting. At the end of each month when we do our giving to these NGOs, it's, we talk about it, the team, we look at each of them that we're supporting. And now we're moving towards creating content, videos, podcasts around raising awareness for these NGOs, because this is becoming such a huge part of what I do. And it's, yes, we sell children's products, but what else? What do we actually stand for? What is our value system as a brand? And that is that we care about this world and we want to make a difference. So there's two sides to the company. There's the philanthropy side of things, but then I'm also building education resources and tools for parents and carers of little girls to support them in raising empowered girls, because, as I say, gender equality is something that I'm super passionate about. So, to be able to now have the support and the team and the time, most importantly, because I now have team to support a lot of the things I was doing, I can now really sit and spend more time in the sole purpose part, which is about the education, support and tools for the parents and carers of these girls, and now to start raising awareness for these NGOs. So this is what makes my heart sing. This is what, gets me through each and every day. And when those challenges arrive, you know what? It's so easy to push through, to get through them, because I just keep in my mind why I'm doing this and how it's going to be helping the world.
This is so good. For those listening and watching, you might want to write down this sentence. What Fiona is explaining now is the transition from being task-driven to being why-driven. You see, when you're in a business, particularly if you have employees that, work like 9 to 5 and they're just ticking boxes, they're task-driven. When they're task-driven, they're very, very unmotivated and certainly not inspired. So if you can go from being a business owner and having a job to transitioning into why, as in why we do what we do for those young girls to make a difference in the world, and so on and so forth, then you go from motivation to inspiration. This is a big transition. Motivation is a push. It requires an external something to push you. Inspiration is a pull. It doesn't require energy because it pulls you in. And this transition is a very powerful one. So you've been in business now for some time. And I remember when we met, your business was already doing good, but you were hitting that glass ceiling and you weren't able to get through it until we broke through some things that we've talked about in health, which was a big one. But I want to talk about some of the things that we've coached on together and some of the things that you've applied in your life and in your business to give some major value to those watching. Because in essence, and I'll let you tell the story, but what I've been able to observe is that you, as you mentioned, instead of working a full day, with artificial light inside the building, just stressed, you're now working a bit, taking a break, meditating, going for a swim, working less hours, getting more done. But what I've noticed with you, Fiona, which has been so cool, it's not just now that you're working less, but you've actually, as you mentioned, built a team. You've significantly boosted your revenue, your productivity, your return on your investment, and all of the other things that we'll get to. But what's been really exciting to be able to assist you with and see that how far you've come has been how much you're now working on the things that you're passionate about, as in working on the business rather than in the business, because this is a very important point. And I teach this in the Elite program. So many people go through life and then they create that business and then they stagnate because they're out of time, they're out of energy, they're out of passion. So then they think that they need to do it all themselves. So that business never grows past 6 figures if they even get to that. And so then there are principles of, I refer to them as the fast track formula, for example. How do you delegate that to someone and this to someone? How do you pay attention to the 20% of tasks that return the 80% of the investment, and many of these tools? So I'd love if you can share some of the tools and what that's meant to you in your life, and obviously what's happened with the business from when we started to where you are now.
Yeah, so in terms of that expansion, like the business nearly doubled last year, in the last 12 months since we've started working together, and I'm on track to double that again. We're pushing for 8 figures. So that's really exciting. So in terms of how have I managed that, what tools, the biggest thing for me, obviously, with expansion was systemizing. Like, it was really important to take everything out of Fiona's head and document it and systemize it, so that as I was building team and being able to delegate, they had processes to follow. Because that's the biggest fear when you're a solopreneur, is if I don't do this, will someone else have the same level of care and attention to detail and do things the way I need them to do it? And it's very hard. You're kind of pulling onto it.
Clinging, big thing. Entrepreneurs do that all the time. The old story was I've tried to delegate. It didn't work out for me. So I'm just going to do it all myself. Well, then, keep swimming with another 10 rocks in your backpack. There is a way to do it. There are ways for you to delegate things to people to get the job done much cheaper than it costs for you to do it, much more productively, and certainly with a lot better quality as well. So thank you for sharing. Keep sharing a bit more about this, because I know this is going to be big for a lot of people either in business or wanting to start a business. Yeah.
So because there was it was already a 7-figure business, there was a lot to take out of my head. There was a lot to document. Now, could I have sat there and tried to document it myself? Yeah, I would have been able to do that. But that would have taken months and months. It would have taken my focus away from running the business. So I actually paid for people to do that. And I think that's really important because we have this thing, oh, I don't want to spend the money or I've got to do it myself. But to bring professionals in that actually know how to do this and do it properly was amazing. Like, I was blown away by how they managed that whole process. And then as the processes were documented, it's like, okay, now we're going to bring in someone to manage logistics. Now I have a brand manager. Now I have a project manager. Now I have a social media manager, and everything's documented for me. So by speeding that process up, it's allowed me to pass those things on much faster and with more confidence that things are going to be managed well.
And so what is the outcome of that? Well, firstly, the thing that I teach at the VIP session before the one-day event, I teach about changing the story and allowing ourselves to say yes. By that, I mean, the old story could have been, no, I can't delegate. I tried and it didn't work out, so I'm just going to do it all myself. Well, that's not going to be your new story moving forward if you wish to have any kind of financial or time freedom in your life. So that's the first principle, right? The second principle, and now that we've decided that I can, asking the question, how can I delegate, not abdicate, but specifically delegate. And there's a system to delegation, which is really important. So now that you've asked yourself the question, how can I delegate? Not I cannot, then you start that process and then you start building out your company. Tell us, what's the journey been like, and where are you now in terms of what you're doing, where the company's at and where you want to go next?
Oh, I feel like I'm on a freight train right now, just a bullet train, just speeding. You know, as a result of being able to document, systemize processes, now building the team, bringing in the right agencies to support all the other elements where you don't need someone necessarily in-house, the speed at which we're looking to grow, I mean, to go from, so in the last trailing 12 months, there was a turnover of USD 5 million. I'm now looking to go to around 10 this year. And to be able to take a business from 5 to 10 in 12 months is not a small undertaking. It's massive. But because I have the right people in place, it's freeing me up to be able to do the things that are going to move the needle the biggest. So I'm working on the strategy. I'm working on the product. I'm looking at the product roadmap. I'm looking at not just this year, but what's going to happen next year. And my time is so much freer. And in terms of inspiration, it's just coming to me because I'm not stuck in all the day-to-day grind anymore. And I'm most valuable to the business when I'm inspired.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's really, really huge. And so last year in November, this is before the team started, I was able to turn over $1 million USD in a month. This year, my goal is to do $1 million USD for Black Friday, Cyber Monday week, just a week, 1 million. So that's in terms of needle moving. That's what happens when you're able to step out of that day-to-day grind, step into where you are most valuable in the business and be able to take a business from here to here much, much faster than you could have done if you were still trying to do it on your own and you were still bogged down with all that day-to-day stuff.
And I remember, and obviously I'm very, I have to be honest and say, very particular and picky with the clients that I work with. Particularly the elite program is a little bit more open because we're a group and we're working with coaches, speakers, mentors, business owners and entrepreneurs that want to scale consciously. But the one-on-one stuff, you know, that's what we've been doing obviously for about a year now. We've been working together one-on-one.
Yes,
is that about right?
Yes, mate. Yes, when I signed up.
Yeah. And I remember we had the conversation and you were like, my headaches are gone. This is amazing. I want to keep the journey up. And you said, hey, listen, I'm already doing 7 figures. I want the best. I want you one-on-one. Let's get it done. And I said, well, here's the fee. Pardon the pun. Here's the investment, you know, and it's a large number. How do you feel that's gone in terms of paying that large sum up front and then to where you are now with your life, with your health, with your income, with your business?
You can't put a dollar figure on the return on investment. Like in terms of, like, yes, it was a large amount, and I didn't even question it at the time. Like I was just like, yep, doing it, gone. Like I knew in my heart that this is where I was meant to go to next, and I was trusting that it was going to have a really good return for me. But how can you put like in terms of the money that I've invested in the coaching with us? How can you even put a return on investment on the fact that I now have my life back in terms of health? You just can't. There is no money that I can imagine that would say, what would that worth to you? Because I now have quality of life back. So let's forget all the business and how the business is to move, which is also like like I will do it again. And that's why I want to keep working with you because it's a no-brainer. And I think about how things have shifted for me in my personal life, in my relationships, and in my well-being, and how I'm feeling emotionally in terms of the support that I have in relation to the business. I've spent a lot of money on business coaching in the past. I used to be a school teacher, and I left in 2008 and had never worked in business. So when I decided that I wanted to become an entrepreneur, and I had no idea what I was doing. So I started with business coaching, lower level, and then it was building up. But that glass ceiling just kept hitting. And I was like, right, I've got the strategies, I've got the tactics, I know about marketing, I know about copywriting, I know about product design. Now, I had all that knowledge, but something was missing. And it just dawned on me in 2020 was when I was like, I think the problem is within me. It's not all this external stuff. It's me. I'm the common denominator here.
Yep.
So that's where I started listening to podcasts and looking at stuff online. I'm like, okay, this is making sense. I can see this. The issue right now is me, and I need to shift what's going on in here and what's going on in here. And then, of course, meeting you and understanding it was also around all of my chakras that were blocked with trapped past emotions and experiences and traumas. So how do you even say, that investment of working with you? Like, wow, I see that we focus so much on what's going on externally and think that that's the answer. And the answer is within. And so to find a mentor, a coach, programs, systems that help you to work on what's going on internally is the answer. Without a doubt. And I see a lot of my friends who are struggling, people in my business world who are really struggling as well. And I can just see it. They're going through what I was going through. And I want that for everybody. I want everybody to have that breakthrough, that ability to come back into their hearts and minds and to be able to heal all of those things that are affecting what's going on in their external world.
I love that. And I just see such a direct, and I mean direct correlation between your vibration, between how you take care of yourself, how you show up every day, how you nurture yourself, how you do what you love now, so much more, how you're creative and passionate, and the actual link with those young girls through your philanthropy work. How does it make you feel to know that as the business grows and you become more successful and financially free, it has a direct impact on thousands of young girls and helping them?
My heart is full. My heart is full of all those emotions that I spoke to you. It's full of love. It's full of bliss. It's full of gratitude that I'm so grateful that I've gone through this journey, because this journey is now putting me in the space to be able to make this difference. These little girls will never know who I am, but to be able to live a life where I am helping to make change, as a human, like, it's no longer about me and what's in it for me. It's about how can I serve? How can I help? How can I make a difference? And just taking that shift once again, words kind of escape me. I don't think words really can do any justice to how it makes me feel. But just the gratitude, the love, the sense of peace within my heart, because I'm now serving others. And obviously you've got to start with yourself by looking after yourself. I'm not saying you take the focus off you. You've definitely got to look after yourself, put yourself
first. And once the self has been done, anchored and sustainably done so, we then transition into philanthropy. It doesn't go the other way around, because that's often what the savior complex will do. Hey,
absolutely. Yeah. So it's important that you don't stop looking after yourself and not looking after your own needs. So that has to come first. Absolutely. But then once you get to that point, like you say, you're anchored. Now, how can I serve others? How can I serve the world, whether it might be environmental or people? Doesn't matter. But I think the more people that can get to that point and start looking outward to how they can be of service is critical for our planet, critical for us as a human race.
Beautiful. Totally agree.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you one last question, okay? Straight off the cuff. This is one of my favorite questions to ask the people that I interview. It goes like this. Just take a moment. Whenever you're ready, close your eyes. I want you now to imagine, Fiona, that you are on the world stage. There are millions of people all around the world that have gathered to watch you. Some are there in person, some are there watching on their screens at home, and they're all waiting to hear your message to the world. Something that you've learned, experienced, or whatever it might be, that's like your message to the world. Whenever you're ready, take a big breath, take as long as you need, and whenever you're ready, feel free to open up your eyes and share. What is your message to the world right now?
I think having lived most of my life with self-limiting beliefs, doubts, etc., it would be to dream big. Dream as big as you want to dream as big as you want to, and then back yourself, knowing that even though you might not know the how, the why, the answers, that you can do it. And I think we live in status quo so often and have this safety barrier of this is where I belong, this is who I am, this is what I'm supposed to be, and they're usually based on outdated programs and patterns or stories that were told to us when we were children. So I think if I could give any message to our listeners today is to really start questioning what stories you're telling yourself, and are they keeping you in a safe spot, or can you dream much bigger? Can you step into a zone where if those dreams were so big, if they happened, it would be a miracle. That's where the magic is. That's what just starts to make your heart swell and your vibration raise, because now you're playing at a whole different game.
Let that sink in. Thank you for your vision, for your inspiration. Thank you for sharing your story today.
My pleasure, Espen. I've really enjoyed this chat. And I really hope that the people listening to our interview today have, taken a couple of golden nuggets from the conversation.
On that note, I would definitely, if you've resonated with this content, if you are in a place right now where you want to heal your body, heal your mind, heal your life, or start or scale a business, go back and listen to this interview again. Take notes when Fiona's talking about systemizing everything, the steps that we did it. Like there's a lot of value in this. So go back and watch it again, and please share it with those who might need it the most. Any final words, sister? Anything you want to share?
Oh, I'm just feeling so full of love right now, and appreciation and gratitude for everything and everyone in my life, and especially you, Espen. As I sent a message to you, I think yesterday, I think I said thank you in about 4 or 5 sentences. Just thank you, and I'm excited about the work that we'll do together in the future as well.
Thank you so much for being part of the quantum community and for doing the work that you're doing in your world. And I'm so glad that you've been able to do this for yourself and for your family too. So thank you so much, Fiona, and God bless everybody. Looking forward to seeing you on the next interview.